What's up, poopers? If you haven't seen yet, the February 5th patch notes have been released. It's great news as now people don't need to fish through the KTerra patch notes just to guess what changes you'll be getting, as it was mentioned by Noxer that the patch will update NA and EU's Terras to match KTerra's January 10th patches. There are a ton of changes coming that completely alter the way players will PvP, as well as some other functionalities of the game. Since Terra has gone free to play, it's as if Bluehole has suddenly awoken the beast and got the ball rolling on finally adding some heavy content and balance changes. I'll split up the patch coverage into 3 parts, first starting with the class changes. Now, before I get into the individual classes, some things to note. First, every class has a ton of changes that are affecting strictly PvP, so if you see damage nerfs, don't worry about your PvE DPS, they're only going to affect your damage in PvP. Second, any glyph that gave a chance to reset the cooldown on a skill has been taken out of the game. It's been either changed to reduce the cooldown of that skill instead, or do something else entirely. This is to take out a lot of the RNG involved in this game in PvP. Third, there is something called staggering and something called knockdown in Terra. Staggering is when you hit an enemy and interrupt them, stopping them from moving for a second and interrupting their casts or charging at the time. Knockdown speaks for itself, it's basically when you knock somebody over. Previously, these things were mainly calculated by impact factor, but now set skills are given the ability to stagger and knock down, effectively giving every class the ability to knock down in PvP. To offset this, the skill Retaliate, which all classes have to get them back on their feet after knockdown, gives them a 2-second invulnerability to knockdown after used, giving you time to react after being knocked down to move before you get stuck in another knockdown or a CC chain. Fourth, a lot of classes are being given invincibility frames. In fact, every class save for Berserkers, but Berserkers still have their blocks, so they should be okay. And they kind of have a skill that makes them immune to CC, which helps with the lack of invincibility frames as well. If you don't know what an invincibility frame is, think Warriors and Slayers Evasion. For Backstep, Teleport, on all classes now, you are untargetable by any skill while the ability is being used, effectively giving Mystics, Sorcs, Archers, Priests all the ability to completely avoid lock-ons and other attack skills which they couldn't do before. It also helps Lancers by letting their backstep work as an invincibility frame, but they had block already, so it isn't such a big change for them. To further offset this, resisting CCs has been changed. Unless you are specifically buffed to have a higher resistance to crowd control effects, all forms of CC will now work more than 90% of the time. That means if you get leased, you're gonna get leased, and if you get hit by a stun, you're gonna get hit by the stun. To balance changes to CC, the base defense stats of PvP gear has been upped, and a lot of CC durations have been nerfed or how they work has been altered, and some CCs are now completely undispellable. Alright, so now that I've covered the basis, let's go into the class changes. Starting with Warriors. Boop. Warriors are being buffed in some ways but nerfed in others, and the main thing to take away is that they're still very viable in PvE and PvE. Now, the following skills now stagger in PvP: Combo Attacks First Hit and Combative Strike, and the following skills now knock down for Warriors in PvP: Reaping Slash and Scythe. For skills, the cooldown of Backstab has been reduced by 2 seconds, now 28 seconds down from 30. The cooldown of Cascade of Stuns has been reduced by 10 seconds, now 20 instead of 30. Mangle's slow effect has been reduced by 10%, down to 15% from 25. Combative Strike now applies a debuff that reduces healing taken by the target by 50%. Staggering counter stun duration has been reduced by 2 seconds, now 3 instead of 5. Now we move on to Lancers. The following skills now stagger in PvP: Combo Attacks Second Hit, Shield Barrage, and Shield Counter. The following skills knock down in PvP: Wallop. And the following Lancer skills can no longer be dispelled: Menacing Wave. The cooldown on Chained Leash has been increased by 10 seconds. Debilitate now applies a 50% healing reduction debuff on the affected target. Menacing Wave speed reduction has been reduced to 15% down from 30%. Shield Barrage's stun has been reduced by 1 second, and a huge change, Charging Lunge no longer allows Lancers to pass through targets. For damage in PvP only, Onslaught has been reduced by 40%, Shield Barrage and Lockdown Blow have been increased by 20%, and Wallop has been increased by 45%. No Lancer glyphs were changed. Next up is Slayers. The following skills now stagger for Slayers. First combo attack hit, Whirlwind, and Fury Strike. The following skills now knock down for Slayers. Knockdown Strike, and Measured Slice. For Slayers, the majority of changes were strictly damage modifications. In Cold Blood's PvP damage has been reduced by 5%. Knockdown Strike now deals 10% more damage, Backstab now deals 20% less, Stunning Backhand deals 20% more, Overhand Strike deals 5% more, and Measured Slice deals 20% less. And now we move on to Berserkers, the class that has been changed the least amount. The following skills now stagger for Berserkers. The first combo attack hit, and Mocking Shout. And the following skills now knock down for Berserkers, Flatten and Thunderstrike. And the following skills cannot be dispelled for Berserkers, Fearsome Shout and Inescapable Doom. Fearsome Shout now breaks upon damage. Inescapable Doom duration has been reduced by 1 second. Glacial Retreat, Breakaway Bolt, and Fiery Escape, however, are now all still usable under the effects of Inescapable Doom. Mocking Shout now grants complete immunity against weakening effects, effectively giving Berserkers their own mini invincibility frame from CC. And Thunderstrike's damage has been reduced by 10% in PvP. No glyphs were changed, and that's it for Berserkers. Now moving on to the range classes. First, Archers. The following skills now stagger for Archers. Rapid Fire and Final Salvo, and the following skills now knock down for Archers, Radiant Arrow and Explosive Trap. The following spells cannot be dispelled for Archers, Velic's Mark and Restraining Arrow. Now, Rain of Arrows has had its PvP damage reduced by 10%, however it has received a cast speed boost. Arrow Volley no longer has its damage dispersed among the targets hit. Stunning Trap duration has been reduced by 1 second. Restraining Arrow's attack speed decrease has been taken down by 35%, down to 15%. The MP cost for Snipers and Eagle's Eyes have been removed. However, their damage increases have been reduced by 5% as well. MP recovering for basic attacks on Archers has been increased by 1.5. MP recovery through Rapid Fire and Final Salvo has been doubled. Next up is Sorks. Sorks received the overall biggest buffs out of all the classes. I was a bit confused by this, as I didn't really think Sorks were doing so bad, but I trust it has something to do with 3v3 balance, so Merry Christmas, Sorks. The following skills for Sorks now stagger, Magma Bomb, and then the following skills for Sorks now knock down, Painful Trap, so now you've got a reason to actually use that stupid spell. And the following skills for Sorks cannot be dispelled, Burning Breath. The following skills for Sorks are now reduced based on the target's hit. Time Gyre now has 100% duration if you cast it on one person, 70% duration if you cast it on 2 people, and 50% duration if you get it on 3 or more. While under the effects of Time Gyre, it is now still possible to use Fiery Escape, Breakaway Bolt, and Glacial Retreat, just like Inescapable Doom. Time Gyre has had its cooldown reduced by 40 seconds, so now it's 20 seconds instead of 60, and its duration in PvP is now only 5 seconds, down from 7. Nerve Exhaustion cooldown has been cut in half, down to 60 seconds. It now makes all skills unusable, effectively a full silence, but it now only lasts 4 seconds instead of 10 seconds. Burning Breath cooldown has been reduced by 10 seconds, now it's a 20-second undispellable debuff. Mind Blast's cooldown has been reduced by 10 seconds, now it's a 20-second cooldown. And Mind Blast's duration has been reduced to 6 seconds in PvP. Mana Volley no longer has a mana cost when you use it. Painful Trap has a faster casting time, and Lightning Trap and Painful Trap now explode immediately after being cast if someone is in the trap. The projectile speed of Ice Needle and Void Pulse have been increased, and now the fun part, all Sorceress PvP damage has been increased by 10%. save for Magma Bomb, which is up by 20%, and Flame Barrage, which is up by 20% as well. Now we move on to Mystics, getting changed and buffed almost as much as Sorks. No Mystic skills stagger, however the following skills now knock down in PvP. Metamorphic Smite. The following skills can no longer be dispelled: Curse of Exhaustion and Curse of Confusion. Now, Saronis Dream, Curse of Confusion, and Mire now have their durations reduced based on the amount of targets they hit. If it hits one target, it's 100% duration, 2 targets 70%, 3 or more 50% duration. Now, Mire has had its cooldown halved to 30 seconds down from 60, and its duration has been increased by 2 seconds. It's now 8 seconds instead of 6, but the mana cost has been increased to 625 up from 375. Curse of Confusion cooldown has been cut to 1/3, now 60 seconds instead of 180, but it now breaks on damage like the Berserker Fearsome Shout, and it costs less mana, now 625 down from 875. Saronis Dream, or the Sleep Spell, has had its cooldown reduced by 5 seconds, now 30-second cooldown, and its mana cost reduced drastically. Now it's 250 mana to sleep instead of 750. Curse of Exhaustion duration is now 8 seconds down from 25, and now costs 700 mana. The range of all Mystic Auras has been increased to 30 meters. The Warding Totem's mana cost has been reduced to 600 down from 900. But the Titanic Favor mana cost has been bumped up to 400 from 350. Auron's Cleansing Touch now costs 400 up from 125. But Auron's Tear, the blue ball, now costs 250 mana, down from 500, making it more effective at restoring the Mystic's own mana. The cooldowns on red and blue balls have been increased by 3 seconds, now 8 seconds instead of 5. But the casting speeds of both the balls have been increased by 25%. So you can cast them faster, but not as often. The red ball now restores HP more quickly. Now it heals over 5 seconds, down from 7 seconds, and it now heals 30% more hit points than it did previously. The Mystic Pet Thrall of Protection will now effectively generate aggro on targets around his main attack target by dispersing threat to nearby enemies when he auto-attacks. Now the changes to priests may seem like buffs, which can be confusing as the current game has priests being much stronger than mystics, but I've been told they have been struggling in the 3v3 battlegrounds against mystics and thus have been slightly buffed accordingly. No priest skill can stagger, but the following priest skill can now knock down in PvP. Final Reprisal. The following priest skills can no longer be dispelled. Plague of Exhaustion. Now, Guardian Sanctuary has been changed in light of the changes to resistances. Its cooldown has been reduced to 35 seconds down from 60, but it no longer increases resistance in last 30 seconds. Instead, it makes the priest completely immune to all forms of CCs, but it only lasts for 5 seconds. Now, Fiery Escape slowing has been taken down by 20%. It now slows 50% instead of 70, but it now lasts 8 seconds. And the cooldown of Metamorphic Blast has been decreased to 1.5 from 3.5, making them able to put out a bit more damage. Kaya's Shield has had its cooldown reduced to 50 seconds down from 75 seconds. Ishara's Lullaby now lasts 8 seconds down from 10, but has a shorter cooldown, 30 seconds now instead of 35. Healing Circle's mana cost has been lowered to 450. Healing Immersion's mana cost has been lowered to 500. Heal Thyself now casts faster. Focused Heal's mana cost has been upped a bit to 350 from 338. Purifying Circle now costs 300 mana, down from 375, but its effect will not occur while casting anymore. Alright, that covers all of the main class changes and tweaks we'll be receiving in the 3v3 BG patch. A lot of these changes will completely change the way you PvP in Terra, and in my opinion, it's for the better. There is now a lot less RNG now involved in terms of CC, aiming, and landing skills. It now matters when you actually hit something and miss something, and now all classes can time avoiding around enemy CCs. It's now about timing your CCs, landing your attacks, avoiding your enemy CCs, and setting up for kills, as opposed to the current meta that is just, hit that guy as hard as you can, one-shot that dude, yeah, check out my plus 12 gear, bitches. I'm looking forward to seeing the strategies people come up with to conquer the 3v3 battlegrounds. Speaking of them, I'll get a video up next explaining how the 3v3 BGs work, including the new tier 14 PvP gear, the new rating system and matchmaking, and how to queue and how to win and all that stuff. So if you have any questions about the class balance changes, just leave a comment. I'll answer them the best I can. I'll see you guys later. Boop.